What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Art Talk Music. My name is Claudio Toulouse, and you just heard a single, the most recent single by Mr. Ryan Montano. That song is called Soulfully, and it is slowly making its way up the Billboard Jazz Charts, on its way to number one, just about to break the top 10 barrier. And that certainly is not something new for Mr. Ryan Montano. He's had his music playing on SiriusXM on channels around the world for a couple years now. And it was so great to sit down and pick his brain about his writing process, get into some old stories, and kind of, start talking about the relationship of songwriting to the world. I mean, to where all of you guys can get a chance to listen to these songs that have lived inside of us and we've worked on for years, countless hours, blood, sweat, and tear, until they finally make it to the radio stations or a CD and make it to your car stereo speaker. So it's pretty special to see my man Ryan doing so great, flourishing in these crazy pandemic times. We talk about all kinds of stuff in this podcast, as well as towards the end, I actually insert a little bit, thanks to Ryan for the bad up to that, a song of his called Penny Thoughts, as we speak about one of our dear friends, John Maestas, who recorded some crazy guitar sounds on that. And at the end of this podcast episode, I will be playing that song Soulfully in its entirety, as well as another one of Ryan Montano's top songs that is Billboard charted. That title is Honey Girl. I hope y'all enjoy this podcast. It was wonderful to sit down and talk with Ryan again, as we've had him on the podcast many times. So sit back and help me welcome back to the podcast my man, Ryan Montano. What's going on, everybody? We are live here with Mr. Ryan Montano. What's up, Brian? ¿Cómo
estamos, every time I hear that song, I think of New Orleans.
Why does it make you think of New Orleans? Because of the song that you helped me record on the second album that I'm working on?
Yeah, and that's the song that I used for the background music of the music video, or the yes. EPK, right?
That's right.
Yes, sir.
I'm working on that album. That's definitely something that I look forward to getting out in the future. But we'll see, man. But speaking of new music, it's good to have you on the podcast. This is, I think, maybe the third or fourth time I've had you on the podcast. But
Número tres.
Yes, but you've always been putting out singles and working your craft at constantly putting music out, staying relevant.
Yes, sir. Staying relevant.
That's right.
Trying my best.
Yeah, man. Especially in this crazy fucking times with COVID and everything happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a reality that, is what it is, and we're dealing with it. But
it's crazy times.
You released a single titled "Soulfully" that is doing pretty fucking good on the Billboard charts.
Yeah,
tell me a little bit about it, man.
So "Soulfully" it was. I guess I'll just be brutally honest about the whole process of that song. So I started out working with the producer Darren Ron out of Denver, Colorado, Grammy Award-winning producer, engineer, saxophone player, and I worked with him on my two other Billboard hits on I'd Like That and Honey Girl. And so I approached him in, I think it was August or July of 2019. And I said, hey, it'd be great to collaborate with you again and make a song and have you produce it. And the way kind of Darren and my relationship works is that we have an understanding of how we work together and what works well. And so we decided to, he produces, but also I produce as well. And so we kind of co-produce together. But this song, he came up with, it's like the way the kind of the genesis of the song essentially started with a groove and a chord progression. And then Darren refined it and added some programming onto it, kind of messed around with the form a little bit, called me and said, hey, what do you think about this section? What is this? Would this be like a pre-chorus, or maybe this would be a bridge? And so we got pretty far along into the process to where we got a solidified demo, like ready to go. And then with the process of this particular song, I laid a melody on top of that demo and I sent it to Darren. And to his credit, he was very honest with me. And he said, Ryan, like, if the goal is to send this out to radio and to have it do well, he goes, I think that melody that you wrote is way too successful, or way too successful, way too busy. Yeah. And I think you need to make it a lot simpler. And so he said, how about this? I'll send you an idea of a melody suggestion, is what he called it, of what I think would do well for radio, for contemporary jazz radio. And I said, okay. And so he sent it to me, and it was very good. And I can hear what he meant. It had a lot of space, and it was, it worked well for like his vision. But I took that melody, and when I sat down to record it, my goal was to make it wasn't something that I was 100% crazy about. But I wanted to go in with an open mind and kind of use it as a challenge to how can I make this as musical and as honest as I possibly can. And I went through the recording process, and it just wasn't working for me. And so I called Darren, and I was like, Darren, I'm just going to be really honest with you. Like, I need to go the rest of the song. I need to produce the rest of the song by myself. And he was really cool and understanding about that, because he knows, just kind of, he's an artist as well. And kind of, for me, I've struggled with how I put myself out into the music business in an honest way. And he was very understanding. So we worked out the financial arrangements and whatnot to, accommodate that I needed to produce the rest of it by myself. So I produced the rest of Soulfully. And what I told him, I said, Darren, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. And I understand that by me going my own route, I may be potentially sacrificing success at radio for this. I said, but I can't do it any other way. But at the same time, I'm also willing to accept whatever benefits come from going and doing it my own way.
Right.
And I made that decision. And it's funny because I went into this radio campaign. I went into it not chasing anything. And I was just essentially, I put it out and I said, whatever happens with this is going to happen. And I'm not going to worry about it like I've done with past releases. I'm not going to bang my head against a wall. I'm not going to, email program directors and send them the music video or anything like that. I just said, I'm just going to put it out there, let my radio promoter handle the promotion aspect of it and see what happens. And the very first week it got picked up by SiriusXM. And then after 5 weeks, it made it onto the Contemporary Jazz Billboard Charts. And as of yesterday, what is today? Tuesday? Yeah. So as of yesterday, I think what is today? August 11th?
11th.
So as of August 10th, 2020, it's number 15 on the Billboard Jazz Charts.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's doing well. And it's looking like it's going to climb higher, potentially top 10, maybe even top 5. I don't know. We'll see. And it's looking like it's going to be the most successful song that I've ever had, commercially successful song that I've ever had. And so I'm thankful for it. And I went in, like I said, willing to walk away essentially from that genre if it didn't do well, just because, I don't know. I just felt like sometimes the music that I was putting out to the genre in the years past wasn't being well received. Mm-hmm. And so I went into this one completely willing to whatever happens. And I think that's a really powerful place to be in, because I've been finding when you chase things, they don't come. And the more you try to force things, the more, the less likely it's going to come.
Yeah.
And so, I just accepted it. And I think that's a really good, powerful position to be in. Something I'm still working on with other aspects of my life. So
yes, integrity. Mm-hmm. And that's it's not an easy thing, and definitely a courageous thing of you to do. Because someone, in the music industry, we think about making money from a song, and it's like, oh man, you start seeing some checks roll in, and you're like, most people would just jump at the opportunity to, how do I keep that? How do I, suck the juices out of this gig that I've got happening for me right now? Well, it's like, let me try and produce another one that's just like that, Yep. As opposed to, where an artist stays true to what they hear, feel, and want to put out and be the representation of themselves. Because, putting an album out, putting a single out, putting any music out is identifying yourself to the world as like, this is my sound, this is me.
100%. For some people.
Yeah, well, I think for anybody. I mean, if you put an album out that's your own, that first thing you put out, and the second thing and everything from there defines who you are.
I see what you're saying. I would say that because I see it a lot, especially in contemporary jazz. There are a lot of people that's not necessarily a reflection of their sound. It's a reflection of what works well for that genre, for that market, for that industry. For
sure, and you're correct about that. And there's the balance, weighing the balance of what fits, what works for that gig. But then also at least as an artist, I personally feel with my own music, it's like everything I release is the representation the world hears of my sound.
Agreed. That's how I feel as well.
Yeah. So keeping that, and that's kind of what I mean by integrity, is like keeping to what's true to you, not true to the dollar signs,
And that's what I say. It's something I really admire about your songwriting and your project, the story of part 1, and even the little bit that I've heard of part 2. That's your sound, and it's not you trying to be anybody else. It's you being 100% authentic to your vision. And a lot of people don't do that. So respect to you for doing that.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, I was always pushed from a young age to start recording albums, and I wonder what would have happened had I started recording earlier. Because I've always written music. My dad always pushed me. He always had a ton of friends who sold their CDs at different art festivals, and my dad would tell me, "I have these friends who have recording studio, Claudio. Let's go record you an album." And I was always so adamant about like, no, not yet. Like I want to get better, or I want to develop more. And to some extent, and this might just be an explanation as to why you take so long to release something, but it's like a fine wine. It's like you got to let it mature and ripen into what it is. You know what I mean? And I've certainly tried to do that with my music, man. Now, jumping back to early music of yours, let's kind of start with like the first release that you put out there into the world. Was it a single? Was it an album?
It was an album, and then it kind of evolved from there. So the first album that I put out was in 2013, and it was called Something Happened Tuesday. And that was like self-produced, recorded here in Albuquerque, New Mexico at then Shepherd Studios. Chuck Lucero was engineering, did a great job on that. I had a bunch of different people play on that. Logan Nix was the main drummer. Well, Logan Nix played on a few tunes. Yeah. Eddie Garcia played on a few for drummer.
Right.
Cool was on bass on that. Something happened. You played guitar on that single. Something Happened Tuesday. It's an interesting story because I made the decision. I kind of made the decision in 2009 to I was 21 to be a solo artist, and then I kind of really got serious in 2012, 2013. So in 2012, I started, putting an album together. And Eddie Garcia, who was the drummer in my band at that time, he had a lot of connections to the Las Vegas music scene, and he connected me with Jerry Lopez. And Jerry Lopez was essentially going to help me produce the rest of the album. And so I sent it to him. Well, okay, so let me kind of backtrack a little bit. I sent it to a mixer out in Los Angeles to have it mixed. And he basically said that in no uncertain terms that he thought that the production was terrible, the recording quality of the trumpet was terrible, all this stuff. And he basically said, don't waste my time with this music. And
wow.
I think there is a better way to handle that. And I made the mistake of really taking his advice to heart because he was, well-known engineer, blah, blah, blah. So I had the conversation with Eddie Garcia, and he helped me connect me with Jerry Lopez to re-record essentially all the parts that we recorded in Albuquerque. And I spent a pretty penny for that. And then we recorded it, and then I sent it back to the same guy to mix because we were parenthetical quotes. We were friends, and he essentially ended up saying the same thing. And I'm thankful for that experience. I used to be really bitter about it, but I'm actually thankful because it was a really strong learning experience that you can't really listen to anybody. At the end of the day, you just kind of have to be true to your own vision. And so I ended up having Logan Nix mix it, and I thought he did it. He mixed and mastered it.
I thought he did a great job too.
He did a damn good job.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of that album and how it turned out. Now, granted, I didn't really have any idea of avenues for promotion for it. So it was essentially, something I sold at my gigs and used it, to get shows around town and whatnot. Right. And through the release of that CD, I was able to kind of get the attention of a local radio station. And they were putting on concerts. And so they brought in the producer that I work with, Darren Ron. They brought him in for a show, and the promoter for that show introduced me to Darren, and we did really well. And we produced my first single, I'd Like That. And that went onto Billboard, it did really well right off the bat, and that opened up a lot of doors. Seabreeze Jazz Festival, Jacksonville Jazz Festival. I saw a big difference in my social media. That was kind of like the first indication that there's
doing pretty good.
Yeah, there's some stuff. Yeah. There's a way to kind of get out of. I don't want to say get out of Albuquerque, but there's a way to get your music heard outside of Albuquerque.
Yes.
And then we worked on Honey Girl in 2015. That one went on to Billboard again, and then it was right around there. I want to be careful about how I say this because the music became almost a little bit too successful, and not like it was, winning Grammys or anything like that, but it was taking me down a path that I wasn't quite comfortable with, because I was still trying to understand my vision and my sound for my music and what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do as an artist. So after Honey Girl in 2015, I kind of diverged and started producing my own stuff. And I didn't put out anything in 2016. I was in a transition right there. I was working at the university making documentary films and kind of unhappy with doing that and not really knowing what I wanted to do. It's like I always wanted to do music, but it wasn't quite paying the bills. It was a little bit, but not quite. And then in 2017, I made a decision. I'd been working at the university, working full time. It was a great job, great benefits. I was making creative stuff, creative films. I had time off, health insurance, dental, everything a person could want from a job. And I was still miserable, like mentally, like something was hurting my soul. And so I did throughout 2016, I just did some soul searching, and I was like, I can't wake up every morning at 8:00 to be at work by 9 and then take an hour off for lunch and then be there till 6 and then come home and then kind of work on my music. Like that just wasn't working with me. So I made the decision that if I want to do this, I need to, for lack of a better term, quit pussyfooting. I needed to go for it 100%. And so I quit my job, moved to Hawaii for 4 months. I wrote a song called Burning Boats. And that song, it didn't make Billboard, but it did really well on Sirius satellite radio. And I was able to, get a lot of residual income from there. And to me, that was the sign that it was like, oh, okay, like I made the right decision. Yeah. And then so the next couple of releases that I put out to national radio, they were very outside of the sound of the genre, so to speak. And I spent a lot of money promoting them and putting out that sound, and it didn't get picked up by Sirius satellite radio. It didn't get on Billboard. The radio stations weren't really playing it. Right. So then it was like, oh, okay, now I kind of understand, for lack of a better term, I understand the game. And I had a hard time reconciling that game, because I was like, why can't I put out the music that I want the way I want? Right. But then, and it took me a long time to kind of reconcile that in my mind. But after a while, I kind of looked at it. It's like, okay, so if I get hired for a corporate band to go play top 40 covers, or if I get hired by, like here locally, Al Hurricane or the Sparks or whatever, I'm not playing my music. I'm getting hired to play a style. It's a skill set that I have. Like same thing when I, get hired to make music videos or whatnot, or edit videos for whomever. It's a skill set that I have to put food in my belly. And it's like, why would I not utilize that to get myself further along? And so what I feel like I'm at now is that I've been able to straddle that line of artistic integrity versus commercial palatability, and straddle that line and be able to be okay with it and put out music that I think is pushing the bounds of the genre. And in my opinion, some people may not agree, but I feel like I'm able to navigate that line, and I'm able to keep pushing that line little by little. Like one of the things that's really cool about Soulfully is that I get a lot of compliments. Like I just got it on my YouTube channel. Someone left a comment. Your sound is, I instantly know it's your sound when I hear it. That's what, paraphrasing a bit, but I was like, oh, okay. Like that was really nice, because it's like, yeah, that's what I'm going for. And so eventually I want to keep, pushing the envelope a little bit. And the song that I'm working on now, it's called Crown of Thorns. I don't know if it's going to go to radio, but I'm really liking the way it's turning out. And it's definitely pushing that vibe, but yet still can have that commercial palatability. It's not like those two entities are mutually exclusive as much as they were. And also the fact that you played on it, I think you've brought a really identifiable sound on the guitar that, I don't know, I'm really proud to have you on it, and I think it's super dope.
I appreciate that, man. Mm-hmm. It's a story, that I've told a lot of people, but Ryan Montano, actually, he and I met a long time ago. Initially a Catholic church, which neither one of us go to anymore. But then, of course, at the high school that both of us went to, at Montano High School, Ryan Montano was a senior and I was a freshman and got the opportunity to be in the jazz band. And of course, you were the second trumpet player, which was, right, the solo chair.
Bro,
so
I
to
was
speak.
both. What are you talking about? Come on.
First and second, yeah, yeah. So of course that's where we got to meet and play music together. And that year, actually, you hired me to play my first professional gig. And I say professional in parentheses, but it's the first time that I played out and had the opportunity.
Where was that? Johnny Carino's?
Johnny Carino's, yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, man.
Johnny Carino's, $40 a night.
Ryan Miles was on the band. Cisco Dimes came and sat in on piano and then trumpet.
Alex Jacobson on bass, or was it Asher?
I think it might have been Asher or Alex Jacobson. I can't remember exactly who it was. I think Danny Moreno might have been on the gig.
Chase Ellison on drums.
Chase Ellison was on drums, or maybe even Joey Santiago.
Sometimes Joey would jam with us. Joey Santiago.
I think it might have been Chase that time. I can't remember exactly who it was, but that was when I was a freshman. Ryan was a senior, and then of course you went on to. I think initially you were studying music at the University of New Mexico, right? And then you went into
2 weeks.
Yeah, and then quickly you got out of it and went into journalism and
I double majored in journalism
right?
and psychology. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Don't use that psychology anymore. Well, maybe I do. I don't know.
But I mean, speaking of using your other talents, I mean that's something that you harnessed at the University of New Mexico, which was photography, videography, and working in
motion graphics.
Yes, and working in a place like Univision or
Telemundo.
Telemundo, KNME, Channel 5.
Channel 5. KUNM.
I remember you were working for them and did a program featuring the Young Jazz. What was it? The Young.
Young. Was it Young Jazz Lions? It was funny because
something like
the producer, the executive producer at KNME, like I was always, I guess I've been unabashedly aggressive with things I want to do. And I remember asking the executive producer at KNME, is like, hey, can I produce something it was called In Focus, which was the public affairs, not really public affairs, but it was a political oriented program through the public television station KNME. And he's like, oh yeah, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to do something music. And so he's like, okay, you get like a 3-minute segment. And so I wanted to do young jazz musicians that are doing like dope stuff and making a name for themselves in Albuquerque. And so I chose you, John Maestas, Chase Ellison, Alex Jacobson, and Scott Jacobson, and who was on bass with that one?
Alex Jacobson.
Was it Jake? Okay, it was the brothers. Yeah, that's dope. And that was kind of like my first. It looked like visually, like the story was good, but visually it was just god awful. Yeah. And the editing was fine.
It was cool. It was definitely a cool clip.
The story was cool. The story was
being
there.
A part of it was cool. Me and John, and then Chase talking, and Alex talking, and Scott talking. It was just like, oh man, all right, this is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I was able to, or the program was able to give you guys some sort of platform and recognition outside of the jazz community in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And that's kind of something that even then I didn't even realize I was doing it, but that's something that's always been really, really important to me.
To go from then to starting from our first gig to then playing and doing some things where you were producing and doing video and photography and stuff like that for that into. Eventually, many years down the road, well, obviously, as we've already talked about, playing in your band, and I got to meet a lot of musicians who have, become, meant a lot to me now over the years. People like Logan Nix and Cool and other musicians that I've definitely become close with or met through you. But then I think it was in 2018. You moved into the house that I was living in.
Yeah,
we
told me to see the house.
For a while. That's
and
right.
I still live there today.
Yeah. And having the experience of living in the same house together, where then you'd bust out your trumpet and it would be late night, and you'd be like, "Hey, bro, let's jam. Let's try and write something. Let's just see what comes out.
Yep. See what comes out.
Yeah, it's something.
We've done some shit, dude, over the years. How about that?
It's been quite a journey, man. And
when we're 80, we'll be talking about, remember when? Remember the days?
Yeah, man. And even to now, I mean, like, just a couple weeks ago in this, most recent song you're working on, getting to collaborate with you on that. I mean, and we don't have to get too much into the details of the song, but I definitely want to pick your brain about the writing process because you're thick in it right now in terms of having this song.
Balls deep in it, dude.
Balls deep in this song.
We could be a little bit profane on this, right?
Okay. You can say any fucking thing you want.
See, it's like sometimes I feel like I listen to people do podcasts and like they just drop a gratuitous fuck just for the sake of having a fuck.
You got to.
And it's like, I don't know, sometimes it just feels good to say fuck. Fuck. I don't know. whatever.
Even if we don't curse in my podcast, every podcast episode that I put out has got explicit on it, just in case.
Does iTunes, the podcast, make you put, if it has language on it, makes you put the E?
I mean, they ask you if it is, and it's not iTunes, but it's my hosting company. But I mean, every time I upload a podcast, because for the majority of them, early on especially, I knew I was cussing on a lot of them. I think the only episode where I had to go back and edit some stuff was with Hakeem Bellamy.
Hakeem?
Yeah, he has me to, bleep out certain curse words since he started.
That he said?
Yeah, both of us said.
He was just trying to portray an image? Or?
Well, because he was starting to work at the mayor's office.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, in case the mayor hears this or anything.
He's like, oh, we can't have that reflecting of the city.
So the only episodes I got my synthesizer out and would bleep out all the curse words. Every different, I recommend people.
Was that your Moog?
Yeah, exactly, bro. I recommend people go back and check out that podcast episode with Hakeem Bellamy, especially because we, talk about great stuff. But throughout the entire thing, anytime you hear a serious curse word, there's a different synth sound.
That's funny. I got to check that one out. I think I've checked them out. I think I've checked out most of them, like 90% of them.
That one's my most downloaded podcast with Hakeem Bellamy. Yeah.
Dope. Yeah. Nice.
So getting back to the writing process. So from having an idea of a song, some different vibes that you want to get at, to laying some tracks down. You came over to the house and we played a bunch of guitar tracks, essentially a bunch of takes on this form that you kind of thought about, and then did the same thing with you had started essentially with something. Right, you would come in with some ideas. I mean, tell me about it.
So
obviously,
the genesis of this song was actually a fusion. Was the beat, the groove, the drum beat, and it's kind of funny. Like, I don't know. It's just sometimes you just wake up or you just get a wild hair and it's like, I just need to create. For me, I just need to like write something or I need to get something out. And so it was kind of a fusion of Bill Withers' "Use Me," the drum groove, and "Burning Boats" with like a consistent hi-hat groove. And I've always liked that. I've always liked that hi-hat sound, that consistent hi-hat sound. Anderson .Paak has a tune on his NPR, like that the very first song that he plays on the NPR Tiny Desk concert.
Yes.
And that one is like a steady hi-hat groove, and I really like that song. And that's always been a really strong source of inspiration.
Yes.
And it was a fusion of that, and then another song that I wrote, "Burning Boats." I think, did I just say that? I can't remember. Anyways, so that was kind of the genesis of that. And then I had really been checking out a drummer. His name is Yusuf Days. I checked him and Tom Misch put out a new album, and I was checking that out. And then I really liked his drumming. I really liked his nuance. I liked his style, his groove. He has a way of playing that's really nice. So I started checking out this band that he was jamming with called Alpha Mist. And I can't remember the name of the song, but they had this really it was a very simple chord progression, something that was super easy. It starts on the minor 6 and then resolves to 1 minor 6, 1 minor, and then they do kind of a few substitutions in there at different points. And so I thought that could be like a cool harmonic foundation for it.
Yeah.
And then that's when I came to you. I had the groove and I had an idea. We sat at the piano in your house and I was like, okay, I was kind of thinking, something like this, and then kind of messing around with the substitutions here. And I said, but it doesn't have to be tied to that. And then that essentially what we did is I said, let's try this. And I played the groove and you just started jamming along to it, just kind of freestyling, kind of doing some improvisation over it. And we did 3 different takes. And then we tried some different substitutions. We tried like the 2/5s. We tried the tritone substitutions.
We recorded 3 different takes, although we practiced it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Essentially got around with some
We recorded
ideas.
3 takes. And so then I took those 3 recorded takes, I took them home and I sat with each one for a couple days and listened to it the whole way through. And then I went through and I highlighted, I kind of like this section and I kind of like this section, what you did. And then I cut and paste different sections and just kind of came up with vibes for certain things. And then those certain things became intros, and then they became verses and pre-choruses. And then I thought, oh, that could be a good hook. And then that could be like a good bridge section. And then program the drums accordingly to that. And then sent it to Arthur Metters, and he laid down his bass lines for it. And kind of at the point we're now with the bass is that I'm not quite sure what I want with the bass. And Arthur's really versatile in that he gives me a lot of ideas. He goes, well, try this and try this. He's given me 3 different bass takes so far, and I've edited together different versions of his takes. Because right now with the song, we're in demo mode. And so I'm just trying to get the demo go so that when we go to the studio, we have an idea of what it's going to sound like. And then I did some more programming on top of the drum groove and your guitar playing and the bass playing. And, I added a bubble pop. I got a bubble off of YouTube, and then I put some delay on it, and that created a really cool sound. It kind of reminds me of like TLC, No Scrubs for some reason. I don't know why. And then added some. I saw my cousin got me a subscription to the Masterclass series. Have you seen that? They advertise it on YouTube.
Yes.
And I was watching how Timbaland produces they break it down, like how he makes a beat from scratch, the sounds that he makes. It's so awesome. And I watched him, like, dude's genius, like the way he produces music and the way he can straddle that line between artistic integrity and commercial palatability. I really liked watching that video and watch how he did it. And so he did this thing where he would breathe on the offbeat. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. And it just created like a really cool sound. And I like that. So I added it, panned the two of those, added the bubble pop, added, what else have I added an iPhone ding. And my iPhone ding just happened to be in the same key of the song, A minor. Who would have known? iPhone, for those of you who don't know, the ding in iPhone is A minor. And so, just did that and just kind of adding different sounds. I messed around with like a little bit of string, a string texture in the chorus, just it's subtle but in the background. And to me, like those textures, they help set up the sections. Like they give each section an identifiable sound. So that way, when you transition at each section, it's a very clear delineation between, oh, that's the chorus. And it's like, oh, we start a new section. For me, that's kind of what I'm looking for this song and some of the other songs that I produce. But it just sounds, I just really like the sounds that are coming out. And then 3 nights ago, I started writing melodies on top of it. And sometimes like the melody will be the very first part of a song, and sometimes it'll be the last part of the song. And in this particular case, it's the middle part of the creation process. And so I experimented with a lot of different options. Like I could do like one melody that has very, whole notes, like long ideas. And then other ones I did like really short syncopated ideas. And then other ones I did kind of, in between. And I settled on the one that's kind of in between and something that is catchy and works well for me. And I kind of got, with this song, I got in the process or in the dichotomy of, is this song going to be for radio, or is it going to be something that I just do for fun? Can it be both? And I kind of had to get away from that. I had to step back from that because it started guiding my creative decisions. And one thing I'm trying to be with the music that I write right now is just open and receptive to whatever the identity of the song wants to be. And not to get too ethereal about it, but I think that songs, I don't write songs necessarily. I don't want to sound too woo-woo about this, but I feel like I'm a vessel or a vehicle for the identity of those songs. It's like whatever those songs want to be, I want to make sure I'm in the right headspace that if the song wants to go this direction, then I can go that direction. I don't force it into anything like, is this going to do well for radio? Or is this going to be good for musicians to play or something like that? I try to stay away from all that bullshit and just be like, what is the song? Where does it want to go? What does it want to be? Right. Like when I was writing one of the songs that I'm really proud of, when I was writing Whiskey Peace, I was in a very good mind space with the melody for that song. And I just took my mind out of it essentially. And I was like, where does the song want to go? And I came up with, or I don't want to say I came up with it, but the melody that came about of it was something that I'm really proud of in that song. It's very atypical of a melody. It's essentially 30-second notes based on the tempo. It's 30-second notes for a melody. It's super busy, but for me, in my opinion, it works. And I'm glad that I was able to be receptive of that. So, I'm glad that the Whiskey Peace song happened the way it did, because it really taught me to be receptive to what the identity of those songs want to be. And so with Crown of Thorns, the song that I'm writing now, I feel like I've been able to do that really well, especially with the melodies, because, it's just coming along really nice. And I'm going to have Steve Figueroa, one of my dear friends, come and lay some piano ideas maybe on top of it. And, where I'm at in the demo process, I'm pretty close to having the song done. And the cool thing is that usually songs like Soulfully, we started in July, August of 2019, and it didn't get released until May 25th of 2020. So it essentially took 9 months for that song to get from its genesis to its, would exodus be the right word? I don't know. From the start of it to the end of it, it essentially took 9 months. And this one I started at the beginning of July 2020, and now here we are in August 11th, and I'm almost done with the song. Minus, we have to go into the studio, but I think because I've been so receptive to what the song needs to be, what its identity needs to be, that's why it's come so quickly, rather than trying to force it, rather than overanalyzing it. And so I'm excited to potentially get this one out in the world. Like I'm not sure if it'll go to radio. I think it has potential to do well at radio, but maybe it doesn't end up being a radio song. But I think, because I think I'm in a good position to really set myself up for the future for a long time based off of the success of Soulfully, to set myself up in the genre to do really well, to have consistent work and to have people, because I see it. This song is different than my previous successes. It's just different. And I think if I play my cards right, I can really set myself up well for the future. So I have a few options on my table. I was thinking about reaching out to Darren based on his availability and see if maybe we produce another quote unquote radio song, or maybe I put out this song, Crown of Thorns, or maybe I put out a different song. I don't know. I think whatever I put out though, I should do it very calculated and very, in a way that could potentially serve the future in the right way. So I don't know, but we'll see what happens. I'm open to it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure talking here with Mr. Ryan Montano, and as he said before, his song Soulfully is out right now. You can check it out everywhere digitally.
Mm-hmm. Everywhere. Anywhere and everywhere.
Especially on SiriusXM, because it will be playing on watercolors and getting a lot of play all over. We're going to take a very short break here with Mr. Ryan Montano and be right back. Thank y'all for listening to Art Talk Music. And we're back with Mr. Ryan Montano here.
What's up?
So it's a beautiful thing to love music, and I think an even deeper relationship to love songwriting, and for whatever it means in your own life. There's a lot of people that do it very well on a worldwide level, as well as here in Albuquerque.
Who's your favorite songwriter? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Oof, that's a hard question. I mean, I would say, Jimi Hendrix, just because like Jimi Hendrix is my favorite everything, and like his songs, even though he did a lot of songs that were written by other people, some songs that he got really famous for, like All on the Watchtower, Hey Joe.
Is Wind Cried Mary?
That's one of his songs.
Is that one of the most famous ones?
I mean, definitely. He's got a bunch of them. Foxy Lady. Purple Haze.
I remember you always play Foxy Lady.
Yeah,
what's the one? Is that Little Wing?
Voodoo Child. Little Wing is
that's a dope song.
Yeah, he's got a bunch.
He wrote that one, right?
Oh yeah.
It's funny. Those two songs that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
I heard of Little Wing through Corinne Bailey Rae. She covers it.
Oh man, Corinne Bailey Rae is an amazing one too.
So can I?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how I used inspirations for. Okay, so if you take Corinne Bailey Rae's version of Little Wing, I brought that MP3 into the Amazing Slow Downer. Are you familiar with that program?
Yes.
So I brought it in. This was back in probably 2012. And because that's where I would do a lot of my transcribing. I actually don't do it that way anymore, but that's another conversation. But I would slow down and transcribe the jazz solos and whatnot. And I had it, I think, at like 120% or something. For some reason, that knob, the speed knob that speeds up or slows the song is... it was at 120%, 125%. I can't remember. Anyways, but if you speed it up, it creates a really dope 4-on-the-4 pattern with rods on the drums. And it sounded like a really cool pulsing beat. So if you check out my song, Still Your Star, that was the genesis of that song. An accident in Amazing Slow Downer sped up.
Yes.
And it created that 4-on-the-4 vibe. Like, it sounds super dope. So try it at home and then check out my song, Still Your Star. That was the foundation of that song.
Yeah.
John Maestas on guitar on that song, by the way.
Ooh. The Amazing Slower Downer is like, an amazing tool for people out there that want to learn something on their instrument or whatever out there and slow things down so you can actually hear how they piece it all together.
Can I tell you why I only use the slow down feature if it's absolutely 100% necessary?
Yeah.
So there's a sax player named Bob Reynolds. He plays with John Mayer and he does his own solo projects. He's a really good musician. And he was talking about don't slow your transcribing down. Don't slow that shit down. He goes, because it's good practice for when you're on the bandstand and shit's flying and you have to get shit on the fly. You're training to pick it up quicker.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the deficiency I noticed in my playing, and I still something that I'm working on getting better every day to do as well is hearing something and not just like kind of getting it, but no, it's like internalize like even the slightest like half steps and stuff like that. That was always like, don't result to the blues licks that you already, like really, what are those individual little notes? And so, because I watched that YouTube video, I was like, I'm going to try it. And I think he's absolutely right. But also the caveat though, is that there's not to say there's some merit from slowing it down, especially like with like when you're really trying to like understand for trumpet players like Freddie Hubbard, how he does this certain lip shake thing, or the bends that Roy Hargrove and Terrence Blanchard does. Like you really internalize that nuance going slower. But I
think there's a place for both of them. You know, it's like even in rehearsals for jazz band growing up, or whenever I'd be taking guitar lessons with different guitar teachers, when we play stuff, or I take video lessons of this idea or some guitar player stuff, they would play things at a fast or regular tempo and at the slowed down tempo. And so the idea of learning something from a place of not knowing as much to being at the place where you're, Bob Reynolds and talking about you shouldn't do that because it grows your ability to hear. It's like, well, I think, yes, you're right. You know what I mean? But it's not a bad tool to have around every once in a while. Also, you definitely, as Ryan said and Bob Reynolds said, you should practice the idea of listening to something sped up and played fast at the regular tempo that it's actually played at. Just here, because how did people do it before there was that technology?
Exactly. They did that shit on the fly.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you ever think about like, okay, so Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie were the creators of bebop jazz. Right. The language that is bebop jazz. Something that I never really looked at as a language until a few years ago. And then once I started doing that, it was like it opened up a whole just conceptually like...
Yeah, it's a language, the melodies,
because for so long, what I would do is I memorized hundreds of solos, and I had all these licks. It's like, oh, here comes this 2-5-1. Or one of the things I would like to do is set up the 3-6 of a blues tune before you hit the 2-5-1. And I had all these licks that, I have these 3-6 licks that would set up the 2-5. And so I was like, I could improvise that way and kind of essentially bullshit my way through improvisation, even though it was, you know what I mean? Like, but ever since I started looking at it as like a language, and then like, how do you speak that language? Like, and some people speak it really fast, and some people speak it very smooth and cool. And then like, where can I find my voice in there? And then like, do it with respect to the harmony, with respect to, the chord changes, like, and if you're going to play out, like have a purpose of playing out. Like, what are you trying to do harmonically? Like what kind of tension are you trying to create with the, I don't know, just like more intention with the improvisation. It's like, I think I wasted so many years. If whoever's listening to this, maybe consider that, the memorization is good, and it's good to get, the facility of that language under your fingers, but not just do that, but like really harmonically, like understand and try to create, like be honest to that language. I'll get off my soapbox with that.
No, there's a great interview conversation with Bill Evans, the amazing piano player, who speaks about the magic of unlocking all this knowledge that is there through figuring out harmony, and really, diving deep into the world of understanding harmony to be able to actually improvise, and like have that freedom. And so, yeah, there definitely is a deep relationship with the knowing, and then everything that comes with that.
I think you do that really well.
Oh man!
Remember when sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off. Do you remember when I sent you that YouTube video of Little Sunflower that we did live in the studio for the Las Cruces Music in the Park?
Yeah.
Like that was it's funny because whenever I play a show out of town, it's usually with another band. And so you get to like hear how different people approach your music and different styles of music. Totally. And it's like most of the guitar players, and it's nothing, and this is not a begrudging sentiment in any way, but it's like most guitar players are kind of like shredders. Kind of like, I mean, and not all, you know what I mean? But I find that that's a very popular style.
Yeah.
Kind of in the same way that trumpet players, like, playing high notes is popular, right?
Yeah.
And so like one of the things that I think that you do really well is like, especially on that Little Sunflower track, is like, it's just like you had so many interesting moments and so many musical moments. And then the way the band followed you is just like really interesting to listen to. And the same thing with Steve Figueroa, and the way he played in his style is just like, I was so proud of the fact of watching, because we've all been playing together for some of these guys for 8 years now in my band. And it's just fun to really watch how we've gone from trying to, be the gunslingers to now just like really the way we all internalize music on the individual level.
Trying to make music, right?
Yeah, make music. It's like, what a concept.
It's a different thing than just like trying to play music or trying to, get at something, as opposed to just like making music together.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I think that's the spice of life, man.
I appreciate you saying that, bro. And it's awesome playing, with your band, because people always ask you when you play music, they're like, oh, do you have a band?
Mm-hmm.
Do you play with a band? And it's like, as a freelancer, you don't really have that opportunity to say, this is my band or this is my band. But playing with people over many years, as you know, and as I know through different, groups that I've led under my own name, is a beautiful thing. And seeing the progression of that with your band has been awesome, because Paul Palmer III on the drums is amazing, and someone who I've known versatile for many years. Yeah, and had a funk band with before. I mean, he's always just been an amazing gentleman and father, and and funk drummer and jazz drummer, and does all these different things.
I think, and now that I think about it, I think he's the most versatile drummer I've ever played with.
He's amazing. Well, there's a lot of amazing drums out there, man.
For sure.
And beyond the fact that he's great on his own, the relationship that him and Arthur Metters have is a beautiful thing too, because they communicate and have played a lot of different people's music, and I mean, to have that synergy is beautiful. And Steve Figueroa is a motherfucking master. Oh my goodness, man! I've been trying to get him on the podcast for a while. I hope that we can push him into getting in here, yeah, and talk all kinds of stuff. But yeah, man. I mean, you write beautiful music, man, and playing with those guys and playing that music, and you. It's not all musicians that are like this, but you know what you want. You have it in your mind, And so playing in the band is mm-hmm. beautiful to exercise, really trying to recreate and bring to life, these sounds that you have in your head.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
To completely digress.
What's up?
Turn this into Our Talk music featuring Claudio Toulouse instead of, but
tell me, bro.
This came from something John Maestas said.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact context of the conversation. But it was essentially of groove style. I can't remember whose music he was listening to, but it had like a groove. It's essentially like a 2/4 backbeat, mm-hmm. kind of, I guess, rooted in, I don't know if you would say R&B or funk or whatever. Yeah. It's just like, it has like he was basically saying that sound he goes, a lot of people are doing that sound. And not, and the way I'm looking at it now is like, yeah, like that groove based, like, I guess, funky. Do you get where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
How that sound is really popular.
Yeah.
And I hear I hear elements of that in my music, not every song, but there are a lot of songs that have that for me. And I'm just wondering, it's like, I wonder why that became the predominantly popular sound. You know what I mean? And not to say that people who utilize that sound aren't doing honest work.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's still rooted in that. It's rooted on the 2/4 backbeat, right?
I think a lot of us grew up with musics that have influenced and brought to life these funk roots, these hip hop roots, these R&B, and soul roots. It's a beautiful thing, man. I think my music was definitely impacted by that. Going to New Orleans and spending time down there, checking out musicians and playing with musicians down there that, grew up in the black church and play a much different way than what you're talking about. A drummer that plays rock music and is a shredder. Right. The sensibilities they have towards playing music you like, or music in general, mm-hmm. I mean, has definitely influenced me and a lot of other people's, I think, output,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, why that sound though? Because it's like, essentially, like,
I think there's always been people making that sound, just like there's always been people making country sounds, Latin sounds, hip hop sounds.
Yeah, but it's not as popular. Would you agree though? Like,
I think the trends change all the time in music, right? And definitely at the moment, it's it's like become a retro thing, right? It's like everyone's into this old style of music and bringing it into life in their own, which is sick, Right. And we've got a bunch of artists who've pushed us towards that, like Justin Timberlake,
he's a bad dude.
I don't know if Amy Winehouse or something like that,
She's dope.
But I think it's just the evolution of music as it's coming about today,
Yeah.
So what? All right. So like getting back into what we were talking about before we paused the podcast.
Sorry, bro. I didn't mean to take us off
man. I mean, that's what the podcast is about. Is talking about all kinds of different things. But the writing process. Now, talk to me a little bit about the writing process with other musicians, because I mean, Is it something as a trumpet player you've always done?
Nope.
Or were you writing songs initially by yourself and putting all the parts together because you do play piano?
Mm-hmm. First song I ever wrote was second grade. It was titled "Wouldn't It?" I think it was "Wouldn't It Be Great If We Could All Get Along or Work Together" or something like that.
Nice.
Second grade, and I submitted it. I recorded it. I used to play the recorder. I actually got really good at the recorder. And
all of us had to do that in elementary.
Yeah, we all had to
right?
do it, but I just really liked it. And like my dad would get his guitar and he'd be like, okay, and I'd just like play along like to all the pop songs that he knew and whatnot, and country songs that he knew. But
yeah.
And so I recorded it on a talk boy, a little talk boy that you got from Home Alone 2.
Yeah.
And over the way up to, Something Happened Tuesday, I wrote every aspect of that music. And I told the drummer, this is how I wanted you to play it. And I told the bass player, I want you to do this type of bass line and, sometimes do this figure right here. The piano player, I was very particular about the voicings and the style. And I don't want to say, it was different. It was a lot different from how I make music now, because I collaborate. I'm more open to the contributions of the musicians, and actually I think I prefer it that way.
Yeah.
Like I like to essentially just point in a direction and then let the musician kind of go with that. And that's why I'm particular about the musicians that I choose for whatever projects, because it's like, oh, that dude understands this nuance really well in that sort of way. And so it's just really fun too, because in my songs they do things that I would never think of.
Yeah.
Like they come up with their own little oh, that's the way. Like you could play me, if you were to have Steve Figueroa record on someone else's track and I didn't know it, and then you were to play for me, I could, within 2 seconds, I could be like, oh, that's Steve Figueroa. Andrew Cooper did that because he's putting out his album and whatnot, and he showed me a song that had some Latin jazz or Latin waheo piano, and I was like, that's Steve Fig, isn't it? He goes, yeah. He goes, how'd you know? I was like, come on, dude. He has his identity and his sound, and so that's really fun. It's fun to incorporate that into the songwriting process, and to just understand that sometimes giving up a little bit of control is a nice thing. Because it's funny, I was reading do you know who David Foster is, the producer?
I don't know if I know David Foster.
Produced like Celine Dion, Michael Bublé.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, Whitney Houston, that was another one big. But anyways, I read his autobiography, and he had a saying that said, compromise breeds mediocrity. And I used to that's kind of the mentality that I followed with my first album, Something Happened Tuesday, was like, no, this is how it's going to be, and I don't want it to be mediocre. And so I'm happy with the product and how it turned out. But I really disagree with that sentiment now, because it's like, nah, man, compromise builds relationships. It gets you surprises. It brings nuance it brings life experience. It brings pain and everything. And that's so beautiful. And I think, robbing someone of that in their music project, or by sticking to that mentality, I think it could work at some things, but I don't know. I much prefer the other.
Yeah, man, I think there's something to playing with all kinds of different musicians and getting people's sensibilities, and then that also in turn opening you up to be like, yo, what do you hear on this? You know? I mean, and from meeting Logan Nix and Arthur Metters back in the day, was like, I called this the Claudio Toulouse Electric Trio. But Logan Nix and Arthur Metters, they each brought such a personality to the music and came from different backgrounds than I did. Arthur did. We each just brought something different, which was fun, and I mean, honestly, birthed a lot of the songs that came onto my first album. Sigh, I wrote with those guys.
Such a dope song, dude. Yeah,
I appreciate that, man. I wrote Like Me with Joseph Scott and Arthur Metters. Joseph Scott was another guy that I was writing with quite a bit back in the day, and he wrote a lot of the lyrics on, I should say, 3 of the 7 songs. He wrote the majority of the lyrics on those songs. I mean, the writing process is a beautiful thing to see as it progresses through life and your experience with writing with different people over the years, man. Mm-hmm. So something I always ask people, and I guess I'll kind of, change the anecdote or the question.
We're digressing like a motherfucker. That's like this is our 3rd subject in 10 minutes?
I know, right?
That's dope. I love it.
Right. I throughout the majority of my podcasts, especially with jazz musicians or musicians in general, I ask them, what does jazz mean to you? But I'll further that question, since you've been on the podcast before, and I think we've heard some answers from you before on that. what does songwriting mean for you in your life?
I mean, I don't know. For me, that's kind of a hard question. Do you mean like, what does it mean to me in terms of like my purpose, or like, I don't know. Could you maybe refine the question a little bit more specifically?
Sure. I mean, yeah. So like, I mean, what role does songwriting play in your life? You know, like what purpose does it have? Like what does it give you?
Okay. I know where I can go with this. I would say lately songwriting has been, and I don't want to get, too.
That's why we're here.
I know. I'm just trying not to, sometimes, just try not to come off too preachy or anything like that. But
yeah,
when the COVID outbreaks started happening and the lockdowns started happening, essentially I watched, a lot of my shows from all over the country just got completely shut down, and I was really disappointed because it was I worked really hard because I do my own booking, and getting bookings is like, to me it's kind of like getting like a really big lottery ticket, because they're really hard to come by for me because I do all my own self-management. And so like watching all these things just like up and disappear was really, really hard. And then what, the financial, difficulties that came from that as well.
Right.
And so I had to make a decision. Now that those options weren't available, I was like, okay, could I put my energy into doing the live streaming concert? And, I see people doing that every week. And I don't know. I don't know if that's, I guess they're making it like a TV show, but it's like, I look at some of my artists, the favorite artists, and it's like, I wouldn't want to see them every week. Like, I wouldn't want to see John Mayer every week, but I don't know, whatever. Like if that's, so I made the decision to focus on putting out songs and writing songs. And so for me, this period in COVID-19, since we had the lockdown, has been some of the most creatively fulfilling and enjoyable, exciting, frustrating experiences of my life. And I'm glad that, I was open and receptive enough to the idea that, let's make this focused about songwriting, and writing songs and creating, and sort of, because I would, and I always knew that like the live music, the live shows was not really my thing. It's like I work very hard about it, especially being consistent, with my presentation. The notes I hit, is everything in pitch, is the band hitting the right hits, the right sections and all that stuff. And I work very hard at that, but it's like, I don't think I'm really a natural performer. And the way I knew it wasn't right, there was a few things is that, and I'd always try to ignore it, but I would just kind of, the week of a show, pretty much every show I've ever had, I don't want to do it. Yeah. I've considered more than once just canceling or subbing it out and apologizing to the promoter or whatnot. And it's like, it's this weird sort of thing. And the second part, and this was the big confirmation, was that last year, so about a year and a half ago, like I said, I do my own booking. I had reached out to a club owner. I won't say where the club owner is or where the club is or who the club owner is. They're very nice people. Basically, I had reached out to this guy for a year and a half, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to love to book a performance at your jazz club. It's a really prestigious jazz club. And I would get an answer like, oh, send me your EPK. And then I would follow up, and I wouldn't hear back from him or anything. So like every 4 or 5 months, I would follow up and circle back around. And so last summer, that I spent the last summer out in Nashville, and he was on Facebook Live, and he was at this place called City Winery in Nashville. And I was like, I'm going to go introduce myself. And so bought a ticket to the show, introduced myself. He said he admired my drive, and he said he would give me I'll get you in by the end of the year. So he hired me for a show, and the band outnumbered the people in the audience. Yeah, I think I had 5 people, not including the staff. And I remember driving back to Nashville, and I was like, yeah, this is not right. All this energy, all this time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, low pay, long traveling, although I don't mind the traveling. And this is the fruits of that labor. This is what I manifested, so to speak. And that right there, I made the decision that I could take the approach of, if you build it, they will come. I'm not going to chase anything. I'm not going to chase these promoters anymore. I'm not going to chase these festivals. If the opportunity presents itself, would love to be a part of, any opportunity to perform live, but I'm not going to chase it anymore. And ever since I made that decision and shifted my focus to, creating songs, everything just started falling into place. And so it's been, so to circle back around to your original question, what does songwriting mean to me? And what role is it playing in my life right now? It's created the best moments of my life that I've had this for. Couldn't be more thankful for it. Not to get too.
That's beautiful, man. That's powerful. Now,
I hope that wasn't too convoluted and rambling on.
That was beautiful, man. I mean, to
I'm looking at the waveforms, it's like 4 inches long. Claudio's like, I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. I don't know what to edit out. This giant mark right there.
Okay.
It's beautiful though, man, to hear, everyone's relationship with it and how it changes our lives and stuff. I know that for sure music has been therapy in that sense for me, and I've told a lot of people this, in times of heartbreak and, obstacles or people passing away in my life, music has absolutely been a way for me to breathe and find solace, and especially the loop pedal. Something I've been doing a lot online.
That's dope, dude.
As I've been going live on Facebook every Wednesday that Ben Michaels wasn't happening, I'd use the loop pedal at some point in my
Those were dope shows.
live thing. Thank you, bro.
Can I? Would you say it's a fair assessment that you were a bit late to the pedal game?
Oh, for sure. Yes. I got some pedals when I was young, but I wasn't, as they call it in the guitar world, a gearhead. And I always turned to John Maestas for that because he knew so much about every pedal, what it did. I would buy some and then I'd be like, I don't really need this. I'll just sell them,
Mm-hmm.
And did that on and off and still do that. But over the past couple of years, I would say since I started playing with Logan and Arthur, over the past 5 to 7 years.
Logan and Arthur.
I've definitely gotten into pedals, man. And now I've got a little spaceship. I love having the sounds and the different things, colors that I can get. I mean, I tease John Maestas in his pedal board because he says, we all call it, I should say, his spaceship. He gets some crazy fucking sounds out of that pedal board.
And it sounds like it's from a spaceship.
To have my own spaceship is pretty fun, man. Now,
he does some dope stuff on Penny Thoughts.
Oh, man. Yes, y'all should go listen to that song from Mr. Ryan Montano because it's a wonderful example of some of the sounds and different colors that he gets, even not using the pedal. I mean, the pedals. John is very much so a producer in that he hears all these cool parts to just throw into the music, like delicious spices.
I know that you insert music of your guests in between,
yes.
So I just wanted to set you up in case you wanted to do that. So I got your back, man.
Oh, I appreciate that, bro. Something funny. Speaking about making money off of things, not like I'm making any money off of this podcast, but as all these podcasts, I should say, upload from my hosting company to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube. When it gets to YouTube, when I'm playing music that has been registered, that video automatically gets demonetized. which is something pretty funny to watch. But
That happens to me too.
I will demonetize this video and put some of that motherfucking music on here with your permission, man. I love Soulfully, and we can play some other of Mr. Ryan Montano's music throughout this episode. It's a pleasure talking with you, bro. I think
Likewise, my dude.
I think it's been a journey writing music with you, having these 3 different podcasts with you. We did one with Arthur Metters. I think you came in towards the end of one with John Maestas, right?
Did I come? No. No.
What was the other one? You came in at the end of a podcast. Maybe it was with Arthur.
We did. Yeah, the very first one was Arthur.
Was with Arthur.
Yourself and myself, yeah.
But then I think I had Arthur on a podcast separately, and then you came in towards the end of it or something. That was a cool thing about, of course, us living together at that point. Yeah, man. Now, just to kind of wrap things up in a sense, what do you have in the future, man? I mean, what have you're pushing Soulfully, that's continuing to rise on the Billboard charts. You're working on this new song, Crown of Thorns. With everything happening with COVID and stuff, I know obviously we have began kind of forming a band and playing every Wednesday night now as the official house jam band at Ben Michael's restaurant. Yeah, man.
And I like how everybody in the group is dedicated towards like making it a great presentation and not just like, hey, we're showing up doing the jam, we get our money and we go home. Right. I really like that. And it's all like coming to rehearsals on Tuesday nights. That's dope. I really like that.
It's been a definite highlight of these COVID times. Not being able to really leave your house and stuff is having the cats come over and playing some music, playing some therapy.
Playing some therapy.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, is there anything else in the future we should be waiting for Mr. Ryan Montano? Do you have any shows in the future, any live streams or anything? Maybe at Ben Michael's restaurant next week?
Yeah, I got a live stream. Funny you should mention that, Claudio. See, I was going more ethereal in it with my mind. I was going deeper than that.
I was setting you up there, you know.
Yeah. I got you. I feel you. It took me a second to grasp it, but I got it. Well, funny you should mention. Next Wednesday, August the 19th, 2020.
Yes.
We'll be doing a live stream in conjunction with St. John's College, Music on the Hill. And we're going to be live streaming from Ben Michael's and with social distancing and a mask-friendly environment. And and so we'll be doing that. We go from 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And,
beautiful.
I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to have Paul Palmer on the drums, Arthur Metters on the bass, Steve Figueroa on the piano, yourself on guitar, and then... I don't know. Maybe invite a few guests or something. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll do the live stream for an hour, and then we will have the jam session afterwards. And I'm going to invite a bunch of people. I think it's going to be pretty packed, but I just have to make sure that, we don't overwhelm Ben Michael or anything like that. But
yes,
it should be fun though. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be beautiful, man. I'm looking forward to it. And if you don't know about Ben Michael's restaurant in Old Town on Wednesday nights, you just heard. I've been talking to Ben Michael about getting him on the podcast too. He's definitely down, and that would be a hilarious podcast. People would truly get the flavor of the man that began it all and hear the story of pharmacy days, South Broadway days, into like rugby days, into pharmacy days, having his kid, his beautiful daughter, Marisa, and building his restaurant, and what we play on now every Wednesday, which is Marisa's Patio, which is the back patio there at Ben Michael's restaurant. It's beautiful. But Ben Michael does work his ass off every week with Lisa Cabaldon. And so, we hope to see you guys there. And if you're not in the state or are hearing this after the fact, you can go back and check out the live stream that I'm sure Ryan Montano, myself, and St. John's College will be streaming and sharing. And I'll include some links down below, of course, so you can check out Mr. Ryan Montano's website as well as listen to some of that music that we'll be playing throughout. But, of course, find a way to purchase a little piece of Ryan Montano and take it home with you. So thank you for being on the podcast, my man.
Thank you, bro. Anytime. Look forward to many, many more.
Yes, indeed. Thank y'all so much. Indeed. That was a wonderful podcast with my man, Ryan Montano. Thank y'all for listening. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm now going to play the very first song you heard in its entirety. This is Ryan's most recent single that is available everywhere. And of course, you're about to enjoy it right now. This is called Soulfully. Then we will continue with another one of my favorite songs of Ryan's, another one of his very successful songs titled Honey Girl. Thank you for listening and come back for more.